Hello and welcome to the Plate Spinning Academy podcast, hosted by me, Nick Davis, a productivity mentor and multi-passionate entrepreneur. I know what it feels like when you want to do all of the projects all at the same time, with never enough time and energy to do it all. I'm a passionate creative who's found my almost perfect blend of business and life that keeps my head motivated, my body energised and my heart happy. I'll be talking about all things to do with organisation, rotas, goal setting, systems and structures, and strategies for business and life together, all combined with a healthy dose of accountability and motivation to help you on your journey. It's time for you to find your tailored recipe for accomplishment and contentment. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm going to be talking about all things to do with the half-term holidays, Easter holidays, summer holidays, all of that. Yes, you've guessed it, it's the school holidays. So this is predominantly for people who have children of school age, whether that's parents or carers, and you'll know exactly where I am coming from. We find it hard enough anyway to navigate working in between doing the school runs at either end of the day, and then before you know it, here we are, we're at half term again. It's currently half term where we are. It might be different depending on which area of the UK that you're in, but this is our first half term week of 2025 in the February. Now it may be that one of the biggest reasons many parents choose to work for themselves is because they've not been able to find employment that is flexible enough to work around childcare and the school holidays. And if you're like me and you have ever tried to find a term time only job, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And the saying I will say is they are like rocking horse poo. Very, very hard to find, probably impossible. And if you do find one, it's likely to be in an educational school setting. And I certainly know that the ones that I've applied for in the past have always asked, I've ticked every single box apart from the one which is always an essential, and it's you must have school software experience. Except you need to already have worked in a school to have that experience. But in order to get that experience, you need the job in the first place. I mean, make it make sense, right? Well, so it's a bit of a catch-22. So it's a hard one, and I know, speaking for myself, this is one of the reasons why as well that I work for myself, because the employment side of things just doesn't make sense when it comes to raising a family. So hopefully, during the term times, usually the state of play is that the kids are in school, so you get yourself into a good routine. So you can drop them off in the morning, you come and get home, you get your head into work mode, however that looks. You do what you can, and then you pick them up again at 3. Or around there. So you're in your routine, you're minding your own business, you're getting on, you think you're getting on, and then bang, it's half term again already. And you're kind of thinking, they only had one a couple of weeks ago, surely. And mostly, although not exclusively, it generally falls to mums to take on the main share of the childcare during the holidays. Am I right? I know it's unfair, and I'm going to deep dive into that subject on another podcast because it is just way too much for me to unpack today. So when we think about attending places like holiday clubs, some people may have that option. Holiday clubs are a fantastic resource, but they are not for everyone. First of all, it costs so much money. You do kind of wonder, well, is it even worth, putting the kids into school clubs? Certainly for us, at one point, we had 5 under 11, and it was like, hang on a minute, there is absolutely no way that we can justify paying all of that money. We just didn't have it anyway, so they're a fantastic resource. They're not cheap, and unless you have built it into your, like you say, your annual budgeting, it's going to cost a lot of money for just that 1 week. To just find that money for 1 week, it's going to be really, really tricky to budget for that. And then you've got to think about, well, if you do book them in, you've got them booked in, you've paid up all of that, what then if the kids are ill? You don't get that money back. And so then you've paid for a holiday club place, and the kids are off sick anyway, and you've already paid and you don't get your money back, and it just seems to be a bit of a waste of time. And you're just like, oh, and you can't work because you're looking after the kids. So, whilst holiday clubs can provide some form of structure and routine for kids as well who may need that, for others, they may not cope well with the change in people or the times or the routine. Now, I do recall when I was younger being deeply unhappy at holiday clubs. I didn't mix well with the other kids. I felt anxious and I felt like I'd rather have been at home. It just didn't work for me at all, because they're not all exclusive to a particular school. There may be a mix of children there that you don't know. And yeah, unfortunately, there's always one or two out to cause trouble. And, they don't even want to cause trouble, do they? They're probably struggling in their own rights anyway. So there'll be a mix of kids there. Maybe our kids just want to be at home, comfortable in their own place. What I'm saying is holiday clubs aren't suitable for everybody. So then we can look at turning to our support network. And if you are a super privileged human being, you'll have grandparents who are only too happy to help. They may remember what it was like, and they are more than willing to help you out. The downside to that is if you have a family that don't quite understand your work, they might wonder, well, why am I going to look after your kids because you work from home? Surely you are at home already, so you can look after the kids and work at the same time. And I think unless you're actually in that situation, it's borderline impossible. So hopefully we've got grandparents to help out, or aunties, uncles, whoever. And then what if you don't have that support network? What if you haven't got that? There's nobody to help with any childcare, and it's a tough one. So what do? Many of us just try and juggle everything the best we can, simply because we have to. We don't get any paid leave. If we haven't reached a point in our business where everything is automated, or that we've got passive streams of income coming in properly, then we may still need to do the work. We may not be able to afford to just take a week off here and there. And think about the mentality as well of an entrepreneur. I know in my own my own head is like, there is always something to do. There's always work to do. And this is where the problem starts, with everything suddenly becoming muddled up together. That you're trying to do your work, you're trying to take care of yourself, you're looking after the kids, you are pulled in all directions, and it can become and feel totally impossible. And as I've said before, more often than not, the childcare is going to fall to the main caregiver in the home, as they're the ones that are likely to have had to have created their employment that works around the family and not alongside it. So if you are a parent and you're not having to even think about childcare during the school holidays, you are in an extremely privileged position, and I would champion you to maybe have a conversation with your partner with a view to having a more equitable arrangement if it's not working for everybody in the house. But again, that is a conversation for another day. There's definitely a deep dive on it. Today I want to talk more about things from a practical lens for what's helpful right now, and maybe look at looking at the school holidays a little bit differently. If they're not going anywhere. There's no plans soon that I'm aware of to suddenly change the way that the school terms work. So here we are, we're stuck with it. So part of the solution for me is, that most caregivers or parents, they simply groan at the thought of the school holidays. We dread them, we roll our eyes when it comes up in conversation. And then when they do arrive, we find we haven't mostly really given ourselves any opportunity to put anything into place. There's a lot of negatives around it. It doesn't feel great sometimes. You think about the kids are at home, they're getting under your feet, they get bored quickly, certainly a lot more bored than they normally are. They're always hungry, they want your attention. They're used to being at school. They're used to having the routine, whether they like it or not. They're used to it, and all of a sudden, you've got a week off. You're spending your time at home. what are they going to do? They're not used to seeing you working as hard as you are, as opposed to maybe how you would be at the weekends. So you think about, well, we'll give them some screen time, that'll give me a bit of a break, and there's a good chance that that's going to affect your internet bandwidth too. So that's still slowing down your work if you're working online. And I know I really struggle, whether they're all kind of doing their own thing or not, but having people around can also be a massive distraction. Even when they're all occupied, I still struggle because I'm constantly anticipating some form of interruption. Something else that I've noticed as well is when the kids are at home is we've got 2 dogs. Now, dogs pick up on absolutely everything. And if you've got dogs in the house, they are probably already disrupted by the change in the routine, with the kids being at home. So they're already under additional stress. So they're already kind of probably being a little more reactive to what's going on. They might be wanting to go out more. It can just spiral some days. And then if you've got teenagers, are they wandering around like Shaun of the Dead film extras? They've constantly got their head in the fridge. They're walking around the house on their phone. They're asking you for a lift because, they need a lift. That's the most important thing. Part of their day is they need that lift. They're giving no regards to your work or the work that you need to do in order to keep food on the table or in the fridge for when they're looking in the fridge because they're hungry or they're probably just bored, yeah. And then you can't win if you've got younger kids. They need more supervision, and then you're having to stop for lunch. There's arguments in the other room. You're breaking up fights. Oh my God, I can feel and hear this now. Years and years of school holidays and them just battering each other, arguing, and you're just like, oh, will you please just give me a break? I am so grateful now that ours are a lot older, and for the most part they will stay out of each other's way. And then on top of all of that, you've got your parent guilt. You've got your guilt from having them spend too much time on their electrical items. You're feeling like a bad parent because you should be doing more for them. And then that affects your ability to work. And if you're like me, you go into freeze mode and you end up not being able to do a damn thing. And you just think, why am I even bothered to try working? I may as well just give up and spend some time with them. So it's hard work, yeah. I remember when my bio kids were younger, the pressure during the school holidays was ridiculously immense. It was like I felt like I had to perform, and I used to talk about, I had to put my clown wig and nose on and perform all day every day. And I wasn't even working from home at that point. I was the stay-at-home parent, and I found it really hard work. It can just be impossible at the best of times, but to throw in a layer of then having to work from home whilst all this is going on, it can become impossible. Now, my non-bio kids that I'm raising now have kind of grown up used to the fact that I may be working and I may need some space, but it is still hard for me to focus fully. What I want to do is turn this around. I want to look at the positives of the kids not being in school. And the biggest winner for me is there are no school runs. The afternoon school run literally cuts the day in half. Productive wise, if I'm in the middle of something and I've got to stop to go on the school run, I come back, I can't get back into it. So yes, having the kids at home is difficult when I'm working, but at least I haven't got that kind of interruption mid-afternoon. You're not sat in traffic, you've not got arguments in the morning in the car. Reclaim that time as yours. You have got that time gifted back to you. The other thing I'm not doing generally when the kids are off school is I'm not clock watching. For me, clock watching is a productivity killer. It's I find it really, really hard when I know that I have to be somewhere. And if you've got a neurodiverse brain as well, you will totally understand the whole concept of if you've got an appointment, make it in the morning, because if it's in the afternoon, you're not productive then until you have been to your appointment. And it's this same kind of concept for if you're on the school run. I've certainly found that way anyway. It can be really, really difficult. One of the other plus points for me is there's no uniform to wash or sort or iron or lose or argue over, any of that. There's no PE kit dramas, It's all hopefully sorted. It's all been ready. As soon as they finish on the Friday, get everything sorted that weekend, and then you've got the whole week. You don't have to think about it. You've got no packed lunches to make. Oh, this is wonderful. For lunchtimes, is there something that you can prep them the night before if they're younger and they can't kind of manage it themselves? Or if you've got teenagers, they can make a sandwich themselves, surely. Definitely. Another plus point is breakfast times are going to be staggered, yeah? If you've got older kids, they might be getting up later. They might be wanting to have a lie-in. I mean, lie-ins may or may not happen depending on what age your children are. But breakfast times may be staggered, so they're not all around the breakfast table at the same time. So you've got less arguments going on there. And then there's the thing that I like to call feral mode. And this is mostly during the 6-week summer holidays when I allow this to happen. I just let them pretty much do what they want. If they don't want to get dressed, they don't have to get dressed. If they don't want to shower, they don't have to shower. They just basically sort themselves out because they need a break as well. These half-term chunks of whether they're 5, 6, 7 weeks, they can be really tough. Our youngest struggles quite often with this last week of the half term. Generally, it gets into a spot of bother, and it is purely down to the fact that they are so tired and they are ready for a break. Yeah, so let them have one. Not all kids are going to need or want to continue that routine, and I know that some will, but most of them probably don't. So if they want to just kind of do their own thing, let them do their own thing, yeah? And just another little something to do with the school run again. If you're on the school run, you've got that transition in what you're doing. But even if you're not on the school run, but the kids are coming home, you have suddenly got a change in the atmosphere as soon as they come home. All of a sudden there's noise, they're throwing their bags around, they're wanting something to eat, and it can just kill productivity. So if you can acclimatise yourself to having some level of work that you are happy with whilst they are under your feet at home, that has got to be more productive than keep working against it. I certainly think that works for me. And you know what? If all else fails, go with the flow, take some time off, plan some stuff, spend some time with them, Give yourself a break as well. Stop giving yourself a hard time. It's hard work. You're raising a family. You're building and running a business. You deserve a medal for doing this. It is such a tricky thing. Either of those things is hard. Being a parent is hard. Running a business is hard. You are doing it at the same time. You are doing so well. I know we don't feel like it some days, but we really are. And we really need to congratulate ourselves for just how well we are doing all of this. So if you are in a position where you are constantly like, oh my goodness, where did that half term come from? It's only a couple of weeks since they've had another one, surely. No, we have got no excuse for this because a lot of these schools will have the term dates on their websites up to 2 years in advance. And whenever I get my new planner for the year, one of the first things I do is go to the school website and I write down all of the dates. I write down all of those sneaky little inset days as well. The ones and the half days. They like to sneak them in and think, oh, they haven't noticed. We have noticed. So I write them all into my planner, and then I make sure I've got it written down in big red pen when they're off. And then one of the other things that I do as well, and I just do this anyway, as part of my working strategy, is I look at planning my year out. Within that, I plan out my 4 quarters of the year. So each quarter will have 13 weeks. And then I look then to see what my focus is for each quarter, and each week within my quarter has a specific topic or focus that I work on for that week. There'll be other jobs that I have with it as well, but it's generally like, oh, that's podcast recording week, and that's blog writing week, and that sort of thing. And what I do is I look at, okay, when are the school holidays falling, and what kind of work am I going to be able to do whilst the kids are at home? If I need to do some writing or anything like that, I know for a fact that having people around me just kills my creativity. I need complete silence, so I know full well that I'm not going to be able to do that during the school holidays. So it's just about knowing how you work best and plan it in advance. It might work, it might not. If it doesn't go to plan, it's absolutely fine. But surely this is one way that we can look at working better, and we know it's coming up as well. And if you're in a position where you can just take time off from work, that is absolutely fantastic. I applaud you. You'll have worked really, really hard to get to that point. The rest of us are still catching up. So there we go. And one other tiny little thing that I have running alongside everything else that I am doing is I have what I call the procrastination task list. Now, this is full of jobs that I need to do, but if I'm either procrastinating or the environment that I'm working in isn't as productive as I need it to be, I simply drop onto these tasks. So at least I'm still feeling productive, but it may be that they don't take up as much brain space. And it just helps me feel more productive. It helps things to keep going, and it might be worth just having a little list of, if all else fails, what are the jobs that I can do whilst the kids are at home. So there we go. That's just it's just a little bit of a reframe today on it's not all negative for the school holidays. There's still a lot of plus points there as well. And don't forget, you might get a bit of a lie-in too.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Come and find me on socials. I've got a couple of free groups you can find on my profile that you are welcome to join. I'd love to hear more about what you'd like me to talk about on the podcast, and I would welcome your ideas for future episodes.